Hello and welcome to another edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director here at GNAT-TV's News Project, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Today is Thursday, October 4th, and we're also pleased to have with us in the studio today Mr. Gilpin, who is the executive director of the iTVFest, which many of you will remember made its debut here in Manchester last year, and it's all of a sudden right around the corner again this year, October 10th to the 14th. The festival will be returning to town and bringing a lot of folks in, and all kinds of events going on. So here to tell us a little bit about that and more, I'm sure, is Philip. So yeah, I guess most of the viewers, I'm sure, are pretty familiar with the festival and kind of what goes on. But just to kind of bring everyone up to speed and get us all on the same page, tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening and the general overview of the whole project. Yeah.
So iTVFest, the Independent Television Festival, started in 2006 in Los Angeles, and this will be the 13th year. The first 7 years were in LA, and then we moved it to Vermont 6 years ago. And the festival itself is really just a one-week culmination of a lot of activities that happen around the country throughout the year, and a lot of work that we do locally here in Vermont throughout the year. What iTVFest is it's not an event. It's a worldwide community of people that are writing, producing, and creating episodic television, episodic series online, maybe some podcasts, anything that has a storytelling basis in the episodic format. And for those creators, some of whom are high school and college age students that are incredibly talented, and some people who have been in the industry for decades and have won major awards, it ranges the whole gamut. They need a place to go to where they can show the work that they've been creating and meet other people in the episodic TV industry. And that's what we do, is we bring them all together once a year here in Vermont so that they can get to know each other. But they're constantly working on these projects throughout the year. Some of those projects have led to actual shooting and productions happening here in Manchester and in Vermont throughout the year. And that's really the whole point of it, is not just a one-week event, but it's a piece of an industry that can be here full-time, bring in a lot of creative, blue-collar, hardworking people, offer educational opportunities, lots of new jobs, and they love coming to Vermont now. This will be the 6th year here, and it's beautiful here, as we all know, and it's relaxing, and they love being here. So.
Well, last year it certainly seemed like it was quite a successful a couple of days in town. I remember a lot more traffic than would normally have been the case,
sure,
even for October. I guess I was just wondering, is there anything new or different that's happening this year that, built off of last year's event?
Yeah, so the new piece this year is called the Independent Television Marketplace. And this is the first time this has really been attempted on this size and scale, which is a meeting between a lot of industry executives that we have coming in. These are the people that might acquire some shows, or they might buy some ideas. These are the people that from the industry that would actually take somebody's script or pitch or show and work with it. And then we're matching them up with meetings with the actual creators. So in the past years, it's been a lot of not happenstance, but people just roaming around town and meeting each other and talking about things. Whereas this year, we've really taken the time to focus in on who's looking for what kind of content and who's making that kind of content, and then pairing them up together in some meetings. That's going to be happening in the big tent you're going to see on the lawn in front of the Hampton Inn.
Okay.
And then after they leave those meetings during the day, you're going to see the meetings continue at the restaurants and at the stores and everywhere around town, when you just see people hanging out and meeting each other. But that type of, I think there's over 500 meetings we're setting up for creators to meet these executives, and that's the first time we've ever been able to do this.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many people all told are you expecting?
Probably about 1,000, or a little bit more than that will roam in and out over the course of the week.
Holy cow. All right. So I guess I was wondering, the other day, the TV industry itself seems to be changing a lot. I mean, we keep on hearing about how network TV is relative to the entire pie is a smaller part of that, and streaming institutions like Hulu and Netflix seem to be taking over more of the action in the business. Is that your sense of things too, or am I misunderstanding something?
Yeah, in terms of the sheer dollars being spent on production, Netflix is leading the way. The latest numbers I saw was somewhere around they're spending about $8 billion just on production, over the next year. That's a significant percentage of Vermont's entire GDP that one company is spending just on productions.
Wow.
That gives you an idea of just how big the global entertainment industry is and how big the television side of the industry is becoming. And the episodic television side of TV is changing. The network model is definitely not what it was 20 or 30 years ago. The advertising money is drying up because a lot of consumers are speaking with their dollars and they're saying, we'd rather pay a fee to avoid commercials than watch free TV and watch commercials. So that's where the advent of streaming has really come online. A lot of people would rather pay their $10 monthly Netflix or Hulu instead of sit down at 8 o'clock and watch NBC or ABC. So there's definitely two different audiences, and there's a huge generational cliff happening where I teach a couple of college and high school courses. And I'll ask the students, how many of you have watched TV in the last week? And they'll all raise their hands. And then I'll ask them, how many of you watched it on YouTube or Netflix or Hulu or Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram? And most of the hands will stay up. And then when I ask them, how many of you have watched it on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, TNT, TBS, FX? I've yet to have a hand go up in 2 years now in a class. So there's generations in the late teens into their 20s who have no interest of network TV at all. So the network TV demographics are definitely skewing older. And the industry is figuring that out. That doesn't mean network TV is bad. In fact, there are some great shows on network TV. It's just a matter of the business model changing. And it's the reason you've seen a lot of these bigger corporate mergers happen. Right now, most of the major TV networks are now part of a larger parent company conglomerate. You just had AT&T buy up Time Warner, which has HBO and CNN on it. NBC has, for a long time now, NBC Universal under the Comcast umbrella, and so on and so forth. So the standalone notion of a network that generates enough of its own revenue off of advertising dollars to be able to produce long-form television isn't really working anymore. And the reason is very simple. Producing television is extremely expensive, very expensive. One episode of one show can run in the millions. You can spend $3 to $7 million on just one episode of television that you will sit down and put your clicker on and watch TV at night.
Like a regular sitcom?
Like a regular sitcom or an HBO drama. Huh. And so because those expenses are so high, the model has to find a way to feed all of that production cost. Right. And that's actually part of the reason that we're excited about bringing these folks to Vermont, because a lot of times events are based off of two questions. How many people attend and what kind of revenue did it bring into the town for business during those days? And that's the way people think of a festival. And the difference with us is the people that are coming to town for these 5 days, they each represent millions and millions of dollars worth of potential television show ideas and productions that we want them to film here in Vermont in January and in March and in May and in November and in all the slow times, and bring that money and bring those jobs in. So this event really is a way to get the industry people here so they can fall in love with Vermont, get to know it, and then want to come back and shoot more and bring a piece of all that millions of dollars they're spending here.
So I guess my basic sense of what will be happening is that you'll have creative people coming with ideas, concepts that they've thought about, and maybe even have some small trailer or pilot, and they're going to meet up with an industry executive, and they're going to try and interest them in that idea, that this is something that the industry executive wants to invest millions of dollars in to bring to television. Is that essentially the main core of what will be going on?
Yeah. So there at the Village Picture shows, there's 2 theaters there. and then up at the library is going to be the third theater. There'll be screenings happening Wednesday through Sunday. So the general public and everybody is very encouraged to come out, watch the shows. You get it to cast an audience choice ballot. Let us know which ones you like. Let us know which ones you don't like. Be part of the process. Have some fun. A lot of these projects are things that the world hasn't seen before, and they're really good. And these are shows and creators who are, they've put themselves out on the limb to put the money and time and effort out to make these projects for you to come and watch them and tell whether or not you like them, and so that they can then take that information and when they do meet with an executive, say, yeah, we had a great audience reaction. This is a natural show made for women who are 20 to 30 years old who have a child, and this show is about two guys who are living together. And I mean, there's all these different genres that are coming together. So that's the main point of the festival is to show all of these new projects, but it's interesting because I travel around a lot to a lot of other festivals, and I speak about what's happening with television. And at the same time, I'm always promoting Manchester. iTVFest actually doubles as like a mini Department of Tourism on the road. Manchester gets a lot of free publicity around the country just from us going around and promoting the festival and talking about it. When you go to a film festival, you're bringing a finished product that you want to sell. I'm an executive, you're a creator, you've made a film, you're bringing me the film hoping I buy it and distribute it. That's an easy transaction. I give you money, you give me the film. Maybe we like each other, maybe we don't. It's a business relationship, that's fine. Television's entirely different because nobody's showing up to this festival with a completed project to sell. Okay. They're showing up with ideas, and these ideas may be in a script form. They may have already shot a pilot or some episodes of it, but the television execs are really investing in the person, not just 100% only in the idea. So that's the reason that moving it to Vermont was so important, because execs will often ask me to tell them about the creator as opposed to the show. And the reason is, if they're going to invest millions of dollars in an idea, they're really investing those millions of dollars in you. And so there's a relationship that's just beginning there, because the best scenario is if you have a show that you want to have made and it makes it through the process and it gets picked up, you could be working with those people for 10 years. Right, so because you're doing one show after another rather than just one movie. Right, right. So think of it from a business standpoint, where if you're going to do a deal with a new business partner that you're going to put in millions of dollars over the course of a decade with, sure, the idea of the show has to be good, but you actually have to know that you can trust and like and get along with the person who's doing it. Right. And that's what the Vermont environment allows. And it's the reason that a film festival is different from a TV festival. Right. And the educational element of getting people to understand and know that difference is a real thing is really the core of our job. And it's why being in Vermont has been such a great place, because, I mean, Manchester's so welcoming to people just roaming around and meeting each other. Well, we've heard a bit about, the idea that you and your group have been kind of at the forefront of this, of trying to bring more film production and television production to the state. Yeah. I guess, how's that going? I mean, we heard a lot of talk about that last year. Yep. I know there have been a couple of movies and a few things that have been shot in Vermont. Yep. But are we making headway towards that? And what are some of the challenges to that? What are the reasons why the state isn't, let's say, in the same position as some other states where that process is more advanced? Sure. Yeah. There's many states. I think there's up to 30 states now that have some type of a incentive program or grant program. Not everything in all other states is tax-based. Sometimes it's rebate-based, or there are other creative ways states are coming up with. The short answer is, yeah. Me personally and the folks that I work with, of course, we all want to live here, work here full time. We want to be working on TV and film production in Vermont, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. I mean, that's the dream, right? Is we want to be here with our families and our friends. And what that requires is the state of Vermont, and that doesn't mean just the governor's office or the legislature, but it also includes the voters and all the way down to the local towns and the businesses and truly everybody that has an economic stake in Vermont to want it to be here. It's a huge, huge, expensive industry. And it requires incentives because other states are willing to say, okay, we want to bring in $100 million worth of production next year. And what that phrase means is that's $100 million that these people are going to spend on restaurants in town, caterers for the crew, hiring local electricians, hiring local carpenters to build the sets, hiring local people to create the costumes. It's a lot of people don't know that the vast majority of a TV and film production is blue-collar labor. So when you hear me say, oh, the industry wants to bring in $100 million worth of production, that means money into Vermonters' pockets. Other states have said, okay, great, you want to bring in $100 million. We'll incentivize you. We'll give you 10% back, 20% back, so that the productions are saving a little bit of money so they can actually do more work, but the state and the locals are overall winning out. And that's worked in other states. Georgia's a great example of that. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, Georgia's so much bigger. They have the population base to be able to do a tax incentive. True, but there are other states like Utah that are small, mountainous, rural states that have done a tremendous job with incentives over the last few years. And also, remember, Utah's home to one of the biggest film festivals in the world, Sundance. So the anchor tenant they have in Sundance is part of the reason that Utah's really started to come online in terms of productions to the last few years. So yeah, Vermont simply has to want it. Vermont has to want to get in the game. Vermont has to want to open its doors to young, new, blue-collar families coming in, spending money, and hiring locals and doing work.
So how much are we talking about then in terms of a tax incentive, which seems the most obvious mechanism to kind of make that happen? Yeah. I mean, are we talking like a couple of $1 million, or are we talking about way more than that?
It depends on how much return you want to get. If Vermont wants to have 2 or 3 projects that come through every year and spend maybe a total of $10 or $20 million in the state, then yeah, you can do a small incentive package. You could do, there are ideas floating around like a sales tax rebate, or you can do something where maybe it's a private equity group that comes up with some money, a private equity group of Vermonters that are putting money into a film in order for the requirement that it shoots here in the state. There are all kinds of models have been being tossed around. But that leaves a lot of money on the table. I mean, like I said earlier, Netflix is going to spend $8 billion on content next year. That's one company in the industry. So if Vermont wants to bring in $500 million worth of new production, that's possible. That's possible. It just requires a robust incentive package so that it's not cheaper for those $500 million to shoot 15 miles to the west in New York State, where they have a great incentive.
So have your conversations with any of the lawmakers or the folks up in Montpelier progressed to the point where they're starting to say, gee, that sounds good, but obviously there's the cost involved. I mean, there would be some money the state would have to sacrifice or give up in order to kind of get that process rolling.
Well, it depends on how it's structured. There's ways to do it where the state wouldn't have to lose any money at all because it's based off of the money that's already being spent. So the way that a lot of the incentive packages work right now in other states is if I bring a production in and I spend $1 million in Manchester in 2 weeks, which is about a normal range budget, it's only after I spend that money in the state do I then get a percentage back of what I spent. So other states have it set up where it's not like Vermont's handing somebody a check for $300,000 and then there's a chance that that person only spends $250 in town. It's based off of what did you do in the production, and here's a percentage return. Sometimes it's done through a tax mechanism. Sometimes it's done through just a grant rebate. There are other models out there too. So that's the interesting part about it, is that it's guaranteed money. And I don't know if it's that guaranteed money seems untrustworthy, It doesn't seem like the normal way that Vermont has done business with other industries, although there are other industries like the aerospace industries and whatnot, insurance industries that the Vermont legislature has gone and incentivized in various ways in the past. So yeah, I mean, we're working with whoever will listen. So far, the doors have been mostly open, which is great. Our local senators and our local reps have been some of the strongest advocates that we have. Brian Keefe and Linda Joy Sullivan and Senator Campion have been champions of this. So it's a political work in progress.
All right. I find myself wondering, okay, so how many different types of movies could you shoot in a place like Vermont with all the mountains and rural areas? I mean, I guess that would be primarily what might be going on. I suppose it'd be outdoorsy kind of stuff.
Mostly, yeah. In fact, we had a film that came through a couple months ago that was actually the fictional location was set in Missouri, and it's about tornado chasing. And they shot it here. We were able to find enough flat, open land locations, and it when you watch the clips of it, you'd never know it wasn't in Missouri.
Wow.
But you raise an interesting point, which is how many films and projects, TV projects, could shoot here at once? And the answer is right now, probably only one or two. And the reason is we don't have enough highly skilled, trained crew in the industry that live here locally to handle 10 productions at once yet in the state. Huge opportunity for educational. We should open up a school and a training program. That's what Georgia did that really put them on the map, was they opened up an institute to train tradespeople who are union or non-union how to take their skills and use them on film and TV sets. And all of a sudden, a person who's been an electrician in Vermont for 30 years now has a new skill set of how to be an electrician on a film set, and maybe their salary just went up by 20% because film pays more than the regular electrician rates. Same things with carpenters and plumbers and drivers and cooks and caterers and all the other myriad of jobs that are art design. And I really encourage people to take a hard look at just how blue-collar labor, just how much blue-collar work and labor goes into creating a production. It's not all glitz and glamour and just, people in front of cameras. Watch those credits at the end of the next film or TV show. Those are all the people that could be living and working here.
Interesting. Well, one final thought before we run. Last year, I recall you had a sizable contingent, it seemed anyway, from local schools here that were involved in it, and somehow or another. Is that going to be happening again this year?
Yeah.
In this year's iTVFest?
Yeah, BBA is amazing. The BBA Film and Arts program is it's got to be one of the best high school film and arts programs in the country, hands down. I don't think it gets enough recognition for what they do there. Bill Mensch and Neil Freeburn and Jim Raposa and the crew, and Bill's team, he has his film students actually working with us on the festival every year. And some of his former students, actually, we recently hired. They graduated last year, and we recently hired them to produce a video production and promo role for the festival. So the relationship between BBA and iTVFest has resulted in paid jobs for their students right out of school. And that's really been the point the whole time, which is how do we just build enough work here in town so that the students can live, work, and play here in the industry, not just now, but for their whole career ahead.
Did any of the shows that were pitched here last year actually lead on to glory and greatness? I mean, a couple of the ideas that were floated connected? Yeah,
so far we know of 5 deals that came out of meetings that happened here in Manchester.
Great.
One on a major network, a couple others behind the scenes. There's a documentary one. So we know of at least 5, but the interesting thing about TV is somebody who met somebody last year, maybe they reconnect again this year, and now that deal happens 6 months from now. So just because a deal might not have happened in between last festival and this festival doesn't mean that those connections aren't still alive.
Right.
You hear it all the time in the TV industry. Oh, I met so-and-so 10 years ago at a party and pitched me this idea, and now all of a sudden, 10 years later, this is the idea that they want to produce.
It's karma.
It happens all the time.
Well, great. Well, we'll have to leave it there for today, but Philip, thank you very much for stopping by and telling us about this exciting event that will be happening right here in town next week. And I'm sure we'll all get a chance to see all the folks wandering around. Like I remember last year, these large packs of people moving from one spot to another.
Oh yes, and late night. Don't
Yes.
forget late night.
Right, of course. That's
They'll be
right.
out till 2, 3. Oh yeah.
Most important part.
Yes.
Now, is the center going to be the same place as last year? The tourist center there, right by the roundabout.
Main box office
Action
information
center
center is
there.
at the Manchester Visitor Center at the roundabout. Yep.
All right. Well, great. Well, thanks again, Philip, for
Thanks.
stopping by and telling us about that, and thanks to all of you for watching as well. Hope you found it interesting, and we'll see you again the next time. Have a great day.